Hi, Cartess. Thank you so much for joining me
Thank you,
today.
Risa. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No, I am really excited to talk about your journey. I think it's one that's probably very familiar to a lot of people. But before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of living in Merida, Mexico, um, if you can share with us a little bit about your background, where are you from originally, and what actually brought you and your family to Mexico to begin
Yeah,
with?
sure, absolutely. So originally, I was born in Mississippi. Only really lived there for about a year. My dad ended up joining the Army, and we've been kind of bouncing around all over the United States for the first 18 years of my life. So really have no place to call home. Um, that traveling blood has always remained. I joined the Air Force for about 4 years, got out, and just couldn't sit still. So just continued to bounce around the United States a lot, and just kind of fast forward. Have a family, got married. We have 5 children, four girls and one boy. And towards the latter part of my life, I'll be 50 years old in December coming up, and I just yeah,
Nice.
it goes by fast. Oh my God,
It goes by
so
fast.
fast. I started looking at my finances and realized, I hadn't done a good job saving for retirement. No savings, no investments or anything like that, no 401k and stuff, because I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And I just, all the money I made, I just spent it in the moment and just went out on all these different adventures. But now I'm like, oh man, I got to do something quick because I'll be 65 soon, and I'm not trying to be hunched over the computer trying to remember and keep up with coding languages and stuff like that as it relates to websites. And so we started to look into Mexico, and well, other countries abroad, just to see how we can cut our expenses so that we can start saving for retirement, start investing, try and pay off a home. So that way when 65 get here, we'll be a lot more comfortable. So saw the writing on the wall and figured out it was time to do something right away.
So how long ago was
That was
that?
about right about 3 years ago. Ventured off into Colombia first, and then ended up here in Mexico, and just kind of fell in love with the city. And we've been here now in Merida for about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So did you travel with all your
We
kids
did.
and your wife?
Yes, so about 7 years ago, we went to Colombia, lived there. My oldest daughter at the time was 17 years old. We never had passports or anything like that, but she got accepted into an exchange student program to go to Czech Republic. So she had to get her passport for that. And so we was like, well, what is a passport? How does this work? Since she had to get one, we decided to get the whole family passports, and we figured, well, while she's gone for a year in the Czech Republic, maybe we can venture out somewhere and just kind of hang out for a year. And so we decided to go to Colombia, in Medellin, Colombia, and stayed there for about 7, 8 months. And so that was our first time out of the country.
Wow. And you chose Medellin. I love Medellin. My daughter is actually
Oh,
Colombian.
is she?
We adopted her when she was 15. She's from Bogota.
Wow.
But of course, so Colombia has a very special place in my heart.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
but that's pretty awesome. And so what happened? Like how did you even find Merida? Because not it's not, you have your Cancuns or your Mexico City or Cabos, those are the very
Hmm.
popular, you know,
Yes,
Puerto Vallarta. Everybody knows about those places.
exactly.
Um, Merida, I guess, is kind of like not as famous, but what an amazing, charming
Oh,
city. So
wow.
how did you even discover it?
Well, so 7 years ago when we were initially in Colombia, we ended up back in the United States, and so like I said, about 3 years ago, started figuring out it was time to leave. So because Colombia was a place we loved, I went back to Colombia 3 years ago to look for a place. And so it was during the pandemic, so everything was shut down, and they had something that they call the National Day of Protest, which is supposed to last only for a day. ended up lasting a few months. And so, on top of the pandemics and curfews that we already had, they decided to restrict curfews even more because the day of protest was getting a little violent. And so I was like, well, I'm not trying to, I'm here looking for a place, but everything is closed down. I'm not trying to be stuck in my hotel room. So I reached out to some folks online, and a friend of mine reached out to me, and she said, you need to come check out Merida. And I was like, Merida? Never heard of Merida. What's the deal about Merida? She said, well, I think you'll enjoy it. It's hot, but if you can get past the heat, I think you'll like it. And I was like, I don't know. It sounds pretty hot. And then she was like, well, Mexico wide open. Ain't nothing closed here in Mexico. This was during the pandemic. And so that got my attention. So I was like, well, if Mexico's wide open, let me hop on a plane, go check it out. And that way I'm not just stuck in my hotel room. So I got there and just really, man, fell in love with the city. Now, when I first got there, came out the airport, it was about midnight, came through the doors, and the heat just came in through the window. And I got in a taxi, and all the way to the hotel, I was just sweating. And the whole time I was like, this ain't gonna work. I'm like, I'm gonna get out of here as soon as things calm down in Colombia, go back and continue my search. But the longer I stayed, each week, it just got better and better and better. I felt much safer, and I just fell in love with the city. Like I said, never heard of it. Mexico was never on my radar, even though it's right next to the United States. It was just never a place I thought I would ever go. And my only regret is that I did not come here sooner.
Wow. Wow. So tell me, what is it about Merida? I mean, I have my own personal reasons. There's something really magical about the place, the architecture and the food, and um, it does feel
Yes.
different than other parts of Mexico as well. So tell me, for you, what attracted you so much? What did you find so charming
Yeah.
enough that you wanted you and your family to
Well,
live there?
definitely the safety factor was one of the biggest things. Coming down with daughters, if I had to weigh it between Colombia and Merida, I felt that I would rather err on the side of safety. That way, my kids can kind of hang out more and have a little bit more freedom and flexibility. But one of the things that I like about Mexico, I always liken it to, what the U.S. might have been like back in the 70s and 60s. It's just laid back. You have a touch of the old, like Mayberry. It's like Mayberry in the middle of Mexico back in the 70s. Everybody know everybody. Everybody's friendly. Everybody's polite. Um, it's not so many stringent rules and things like that. So, and we've always lived in rural towns outside of major cities, and so it just felt like home. It was just peaceful, at ease, friendly, and it's just easy to fall in love with.
And how would you say the cost of living has been compared to living in the
Oh my
U.S.?
goodness! I mean, there's a budget range for everybody. We were able to significantly reduce our expenses by like 60%, right off the
What?
bat. I mean, just while at the same time improving the quality of life. So it was like, wow, I can cut my living expenses by half and have a better quality of life than I did while I was paying more. So, I mean, it's insane. It's insane. People have this idea that um, everything is going to be run down or old, just not good quality. But I find that the infrastructures here, particularly of the houses, are much better. And but we were able to save a lot of money, go out to eat. I know when we first got here, me and two of my daughters, we went to the movies to watch a brand new release movie. The movies play in English, but all three of us, the bill was like $6.36 for a brand new movie. You know what I mean? And I'm like, and we got popcorn, hot dogs, and candy and soda. That was like another $6 for all of us, and it was like, wow, this is the life.
Yeah. My God, because movies are
Per
$20 now
person,
here. So
exactly.
per person,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So,
Wow. That's, yeah, that's almost unfathomable.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Which is terrible to think, but it's actually really refreshing, right? And to know that you could have a quality of life, and enjoy just, not feel like you're sacrificing so much, right? You may have a lower cost of living, you're saving so much money, but still have the quality of life, which I think is so, so important.
Absolutely.
Um, and I think that the safety issue is a big one, as you know, right? Of course, being in the US it's a pretty stressful place
It
right now.
is.
Um, and I find that especially for people of color, they moving to Mexico, they find a relief, um, just in the safety issues. I don't know if you feel that way as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the police here, particularly in Merida. I don't know what it's like in other parts of Mexico, but they give a whole new definition to the phrase public servant. Um, every day I'm out, the police is either helping somebody. They're literally out there changing somebody's tire. They got jumper cables in there, jumping somebody's car off. Friend of mine, he got lost, trying to figure out how to get to some other part of a beach town. They told him to get back in his car and follow us, and drove him to the to the place he was trying to get to. Quite a few times I tried to cross the street. They're eager to go stop the traffic and get you across the street, and then they just go out of their way to help, and they're very friendly. My daughter, when she came to visit, my oldest daughter, she had a little camera and she was running around taking pictures of the police. I'm like, stop taking pictures of the. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, man, stop. And and they're just posing, and the police officers, and they were just having a blast with So it's drastically different. This is a place you can just kind of let your guard down and just relax, and nobody's gonna bother you.
Yeah, I think that's important, to note because, of course, doing Dream Retirement in Mexico, one of the first questions that people often ask me is how safe
Hmm.
Mexico is. And there's a lot of people won't go down to Mexico just because they think it's so unsafe.
Exactly.
And I keep telling them, I'm like, of course there are unsafe places
Yes.
everywhere, but for the most part, I have never felt unsafe in Mexico. And of course, it just depends on where you are. Yeah, you don't go to where the cartels are, and you don't do, there's certain things that you just don't do,
Exactly.
if you want to stay out of trouble, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, uh, so kind of going into like we talked actually, before this call, healthcare,
Yes.
and you've had to use the healthcare system there. And I just wanted you to share a little bit about your experience because I think you have a really great, perspective, in terms of using the medical system there. Because, of course, that is also something that is high on people's list,
Yes.
when they're choosing a city or a country, to move to or to relocate.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, we've gotten oh my goodness, a big taste of the healthcare system involuntarily, I would say. When we first got here, our plan was to actually um, go because prior to coming to Merida, I was going to go to Querétaro. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Um,
Querétaro,
Querétaro,
yeah.
and we were going to go there and live. But I had already been here. I was going to take my daughters there and let them choose. Do we stay in Merida or do we go to Querétaro? So I came here first, but everybody started getting sick. And so we kind of had to delay those plans. And so my daughter ended up getting diagnosed with schizophrenia shortly after we arrived. And so we had to use the healthcare system. I mean, we were in and out of the hospital on a regular basis, calling 911. For those, yeah, I don't know, people who are not familiar with schizophrenia, it's a disease that plays with the mind, and so we're constantly in the hospital for practically for about 18 months, the first year and a half, to try and get her
Oh,
medications right, get the right dosage, just trying to figure that out. First, getting a diagnosis and emergency room visits, ER, ambulance rides, and stuff like that. And then shortly after that, she needed to have emergency surgery. One day in the morning time, she woke up cramping with pain, and the night before she cooked some chicken or made some hamburgers, and so I was like, you just didn't cook your meat right, so we'll see the doctor later on the day because she had a gynecology appointment earlier that day. And so she was cramping and cramping. So we went to the hospital for her appointment. And one of the things that was new to us, just a standard process for a gynecological exam, they include an ultrasound. So they plugged her up to the machine and they saw that she had a big giant cyst about a liter, the size of a liter, that wrapped around one of her ovaries. And
oh
so
my
yeah,
God.
so it entangled up around that, and so they was looking at it, and they was like, she needs surgery today. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh my goodness, we've already been exhausted much of our savings in the healthcare system with the schizophrenia, and so here in Mexico, you got to pay up front for services and treatment and stuff like that. So I was like, we just don't have the money. We'll hop on a plane and go back to the States. And so the doctor was like, no, she ain't gonna make it back to the States. Y'all need to have this surgery today. So ended up getting the money together and all of that, and they did the surgery. They removed the cyst. She lost an ovary in the process, and she's 16 now. So she lost one of her ovaries as a result of the cyst wrapped around it. So we had that. Great care,
Oh my
great
God.
care. The quality of the care was phenomenal for that. I ended up having emergency surgery. Apparently, I had a big mass that had gotten around my airway, had shifted my airway over, and so they had to have a thyroid surgery, and I was in the hospital for a week for that. And again, excellent
Oh my
service,
God.
great care. The physicians were excellent. A lot of people. My biggest concern was, we don't speak Spanish well. Are there going to be any people who can help us translate? And so many of the staff members spoke English. The doctors spoke English, and it was just a great experience. I really have no complaints about the healthcare system. Its quality, but I think if I had one complaint with my daughter's care as it relates to schizophrenia, it just seemed that long-term care was a challenge. I don't know if it's the culture here. Um, many of the doctors start off great. A few months in, they just kind of disappear. Or I don't know why they just disappear. So we got to find another doctor. They start off great, then 4 or 5 months down, they disappear, and they'll resurface 2 or 3 months later. But the short-term care, excellent. Long-term care, you know, that's been our experience, I would say.
Did you have insurance to cover the operations and other medical
Well,
procedures?
fortunately,
Or did you all have to pay out of
well,
pocket for
fortunately
everything?
for my surgery, we did have Cigna, and unbeknownst to me at the time, because they did keep me in the hospital. They bought me some time. They worked with me. I don't know if they do this regularly, but they bought me some time to kind of get the money, to raise the money. And during that time, I learned that they would accept my Cigna healthcare insurance. And apparently, this particular hospital accepted all of the major insurance like Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I believe the other one was Aetna. And my plan specifically covered emergencies if I was admitted into the hospital. And so they admitted me in, and they allowed, they worked with the insurance company to cover the surgery. Now, for my daughter's care in the state that we were living in back in the States, they had a separate health care plan for children. And so that particular policy was not accepted here. So I had to pay out of pocket for her surgery. And and again, this was an emergency surgery. We went in after we left the gynecologist's office, went to one hospital, got a quote, left that hospital to get a second opinion, and decided to stay with that hospital. And I think the total surgery was like 3,300 US dollars. So, and that was done laparoscopically. So they didn't have to cut. He said it would be cheaper for them to cut, but when they broke it down, it was only like $500 cheaper the cut. So we decided to go with the laparoscopic so it could heal quicker and less scarring. And so the price, I mean, again, so we went in about 3 o'clock that afternoon. They was rolling it to the back and doing the surgery by 4 p.m. an hour later. They admitted her to the hospital for 2 days, and like I say, about 3,300 bucks. Now the care for the schizophrenia, like I say, we were in and out of the hospital for about a year and a half. Much all of that we paid out of pocket, and that was very affordable. Fortunately, the hospital visits, trips to the emergency room in the middle of the night, 25 US dollars on the average. Yeah.
What?
Oh yeah,
$25?
very, very, very affordable. In the emergency room, because we were there all the time, particularly because we didn't know what was going on. Sometimes she feel that there might be worms in her body, and she's trying to cut them out. And this was at the
Oh,
beginning,
poor
and
thing.
it was horrendous. So we was always there. Just this was a brand new thing for us, and so but every time we go, $25, $30. Sometimes we would come in, they'll see her and say, "You owe us nothing," and they just send us out the door without a bill. They's like, "It's okay," and so they worked with us a lot. So it was very affordable out of pocket for her care without the insurance.
Wow, that is I, I can't even believe that. I mean, it costs $25. It costs more than $25 just to park
Exactly.
in a New York hospital.
Exactly.
So that's, I mean, that in itself, I'm sure has really helped. And just to know that she's also getting proper care,
Absolutely.
right? It's a shame that, the long-term issue and, because she will probably always need to
Yes.
care for it in some way.
Yes.
Um, and just have to find a doctor who's going to be able, or get the right cocktail of meds, I guess,
Absolutely.
that,
And I think we
can
finally
do
got
that.
the right cocktail, and this new doctor we have, she's been seeing now for about 6 months. So he's the longest one, and he looks very promising. Excellent doctor. She loves him. And one unique thing about the doctors here is they give you their phone number, and you can contact them directly, whether it's the gynecologist, the psychiatrist, a dermatologist. You deal with them directly. You're not dealing with a middleman or a nurse. So anytime she had any issues, we can contact him in real time. He's responsive, and they're adjusting the medication or adding to. And so while I have a little complaints about the long term care, because simultaneously I was on Facebook groups dealing with other parents with children with schizophrenia back in the United States. And when I hear the horror stories that they're dealing with the healthcare system there, it made me appreciate what I'm dealing with here. Even though it's frustrating, and I learned that I have more flexibility and I have more options here than I would have in the United States. And so many of the parents that they're dealing with the same issue in the United States have actually been making a transition to move down here so they can have more control over their children's care as it relates to psychiatric issues. So overall, if I still had to choose between the two, I would take the healthcare system here for mental health versus what's going on over in the states.
Wow, interesting, interesting. Um, so let me just shift gears a little bit in terms of, because I know I want to ask you about
Okay.
housing and what that experience was like to find
Hmm.
housing, to find, I'm assuming you rent,
Yes.
right? What neighborhoods did you look at? Which were your favorite neighborhoods? and why? And yeah, what was that process like for you and your
So
family?
when I first got here, I think I made the fundamental mistake that all new expats or immigrants make. We compare pricing of homes here to what we might pay in the United States. So the first house we had rented, the first house we rented, I think it was like $1,000 and thousand US dollars per month. And but the thought process was, man, that would cost me 3,500 bucks in the United States. So this is a great deal, and so we jump on that place because it's very pretty, very nice in a great in a wealthy neighborhood out here called Montebello. And so we moved in, providers all around, which providers are like gated communities with walls wrapped around them and all of that. So very pretty, very, very, very nice. Only as time go by, you really start to learn how things work and operate, and you find that the house that you're paying $1,000 for, if I got it on the other side of town, could have got the same place for about $450 a month. And you're like,
Wow.
wow, I got,
Right.
and so you live and you learn. You know, I did like that neighborhood. It was very modern, very felt more like homes and neighborhoods back in the States. And we did go that route because again, I had daughters. Um, when I went out, I wanted to feel as if that when I leave, they would be safe. They were in a provider, they were security. I wouldn't have to worry about anything. Just trying to stack the odds in my favor. Now, 6 months after that, we decided to move to another neighborhood that was not as pretty and as pristine as that neighborhood of providers and gated communities. Moved into more traditional neighborhoods where we can walk outside our door and go buy some tacos from the guy on the corner, or go get some chips from this guy, or go sit across the road and this guy, hey, come pick out a fish. Fresh fish delivered to his house. You come pick it out, and then he fries it for you and fillet it and clean it all up for you right there. And we were in that neighborhood for about 2 years. Absolutely
Oh,
loved it.
wow.
The kids would go to the store, to the corner, La Tiendas, a mom and pop La Tienda. They got a chance to know the owners, which turned into the kids got to know the grandmother, the mother, the uncle, the grandkids. So knew everybody. You even have little IOUs. If you didn't have enough money, you just come back and pay it next week. If you just want to buy one or two eggs, you can just go buy two eggs or just one roll of toilet paper. So absolutely love that type of environment. The rent significantly cheaper, um, gave you more exposure.
What neighborhood is
Say
this in?
again,
What
this
neighborhood is
one
this
was
in?
still a little upscale, but the homes were more traditional. It was Montes de Ame. So you had, instead of all new houses like in Montebello, you would have all these old houses, and there might be one or two new houses, and then the other houses would be older houses, but they were pretty decent size, very safe area, lots of shopping, lots of stores, and all of that. And so we loved it there, loved it, loved it, loved it. And so we just recently moved for the third time, which will be the final time, I think, before we start buying or either building. But now the neighborhood we're in now is outside of Merida, um, in a city called Concal, out in the rural area, where here, you know, you can just walk down the street and you'll just see a random horse just gallivanting up and down the road, or some cows crossing the street. Everybody, your Uber rides or the motorbikes, because we're kind of far out. And we find that we like it out here better. Although the last place we absolutely loved, but we still got a lot of that here because we can walk outside of our neighborhood and go buy some tacos, go get some apples and oranges and fruit. And the kids, they have more independence because now they can just walk across the street or go and do whatever they want to do. They can go buy little dresses and little purses and bracelets, and just they just love it, absolutely love it.
Wow. And so can I ask, so how big is your house now, your new house, and what's the rental
So the
market?
house that I'm in now is probably, I will probably put it at about 3,000 square feet. Um, it's yeah,
So big.
this is a much bigger one. Um, the biggest one that we've had since we've been here. Four bedrooms, swimming pool. They got a beautiful gazebo in the back. Absolutely beautiful, fully furnished. We pay about $1,200 per month at the exchange rate now. And the icing on the
Wow.
cake is the reason, because a lot of people will say, "Oh, you're paying too much," but this particular house also has 31 solar panels on top, so electricity can get to be pretty expensive. So we get a zero electric bill from the electric company. So we decided to spend a little more on the house if we can get solar panels. And so that's why we pay a little more. I think you probably can get the same house for probably about 700 or 800 elsewhere, but with the solar panels on top, it made it worth it because we Merida is extremely hot. We ran our air conditioner a lot, and just to be comfortable. So with these panels here, it's we can run it all day long and not have a bill.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a great trade-off because that is true. A lot of people don't seem to, they often underestimate the cost of electricity when you're running your air conditioner 24/7, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Less stress. We're not having to try and keep up with anybody, work hard to try and keep stuff. You're not having to earn as much money. You're not having to, again, the stress factor just goes all the way down. And your kids are safe. It's making that transition again. My only regret is we didn't do it sooner.
Right. That's amazing. That's so amazing. So as we begin to wrap this up, Cartess, a lot of people often think about doing this, making the leap to move to Mexico, but they oftentimes don't for whatever reason, right? Oftentimes it's their own fears of the unknown and that sort of thing. And for someone who had never lived or never really been to Mexico, and never really considered it as a place to live, what kind of advice would you give to people like that who are kind of thinking about it, but not quite, they don't know if they should make the
I
leap?
would I would suggest the person just really come out here and visit. Come out here for 5, 7, 10 days and just check it out. The fears that you have will really never go away until you get on the plane and just come see for yourself. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to downplay it. I was terrified, when we finally got rid of all of our stuff and got on that plane and started making our way over here. I was like, oh my God, did I make the right decision? What if this happens? Um, you know, it's I made a mistake. I put my family at jeopardy. In jeopardy, I put them at risk. I mean, all of those thoughts went through my head. But coming here to see firsthand will give you a totally different perspective. I think the media in the U.S. does a wonderful job at making Mexico look very bad. And it is, I promise you, it's not the case. You put eyes on this place and just walk these streets at nighttime and interact with the people, you're going to be blown away. When people come for a visit, I often tell them, hey, when you come down here, try out the healthcare system. If you need to get a tooth cleaned, get it cleaned while you're here. Get a tooth pulled. Get some glasses, just so you can kind of get an idea of what it's going to really be like. And so that's what I recommend. Just come try it. You're going to be scared. You're going to be nervous. You're going to hear all of these stories from family members who's never been here telling you that the cartel is going to kidnap you and hold you for ransom. But ignore that and come check it out for yourself. You can always get back on the plane and go back home if it ain't what you expected it to be. That would be my advice. See for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing. That's amazing. So Cartess, I know you have a YouTube channel as
See.
well. Um, if people want to follow you, find you, find out more about you, where
Yeah,
do they go?
absolutely. Visit our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Move Abroad and Thrive. We also have a website where we have a bunch of free resources about making that transition to a life abroad at www.moveabroadandthrive.com. And so, yeah, just sign up, subscribe, and, we're here to help you figure it out.